Hello there, everybody. My name is Dr. Janine Dietrich, and I am absolutely delighted to be here with you today and have you joining me. My purpose for today's visit is that I would like to introduce to you someone I have discovered to be an absolutely amazing depression relief coach. There are so many people out there that have pervasive anxiety and depression problems troubling their lives. And my purpose, as you know, is to lift and elevate societal consciousness and to edify the human race to transcend all of these egoically driven problems. Therefore, my dear friend, and I might add, I am absolutely delighted that we coaches, have coaches. We believe in what we do. So we all have coaches ourselves. And because of that, my dear sweet friend that I'm going to introduce to you today is also one of my students. And I have had the privilege of being her coach as well throughout her life because we believe in what we do. And all of us coaches have coaches. My dear friend that I'm introducing to you today is going to be talking with you about depression relief and introducing to you some amazing courses that she has developed, which I want this video to go viral because your solution has been found. I would like to introduce to you today Demi Schneider from the United Kingdom, depression relief coach. And her courses are found on, write this down, depression busting courses, plural.com. Depression busting courses.com. Demi Schneider, welcome. I'm glad to have you here today, Demi.
Oh, thank you so much, Janine. It's just so wonderful to be with you in this way. It's really good to see you too.
It is absolutely delightful to have you here. I love what you do. What you do and what you teach, Demi, elevates societal consciousness. And since that's my life mission, and I know you share that as well,
yeah,
I'm absolutely grateful.
Absolutely.
So, Demi, I just want to ask you a few questions so that our listeners can listen to you and get to know you so that they can comprehend when they go to depressionbustingcourses.com what they are going to be receiving. So, Demi, talk to me a little bit. Talk to us. How is it that you happen to choose to help people with depression and anxiety relief coaching? Talk to us about that.
Well, Janine, just like you were saying, really, it really turned out to be my calling. I had no idea I was going to end up in this, but it turned out to be my calling, I feel. I always kind of wanted to be of service to people or make a difference to people's lives. And a lifetime ago, I started out in the beauty business, but then I soon realized that feeling good through looking good just doesn't hit the spot. And at the time, I was very much embarking on my own journey from life disappointment and frustration and various times of darkness and despair. Like searching for that truth that I instinctively knew had to be there and that we've worked on a lot together to find that key to authentic, lasting happiness. And then through all the training that I've done in metaphysics and neuroscience and hypnotherapy, psychotherapy, solution-focused brief therapy, I found that the biggest issues for people were really around anxiety and depression. And then I realized with my own background and journey and my various trainings that I have something different and unique to offer people to help them live well and find their true happiness and to beat anxiety and depression for good. So I really started focusing on that and developed my own powerful, unique process to guide people on this wonderful journey from pain to joy. And I've been doing that specifically now, as you say, for the last 5 years, helping people from all over the world to live well, feel good, and beat anxiety and depression for good.
It's absolutely awesome that your experience, both personally and then professionally, as you lift and elevate your clients, has caused you to develop these processes, which have absolutely been proven to work to beat and overcome depression and anxiety. So tell us all, Demi, what is it about your processes that you've developed that are so different and unique?
Well, absolutely, I'm authentic, as you just said there.
Yeah.
You know, firstly, I work on both the conscious and the subconscious levels, because our brain, as I know you know, is actually only 10% conscious and is 90% subconscious.
Yeah.
So what I call the talking therapies out there, they tend to only work on that 10% conscious mind. So it doesn't take a genius to realize that whatever changes might be set up in that 10% conscious part, working against 90% embedded data in that subconscious is, you know, going to be something of an uphill struggle, right? So working on both that 10% conscious and that 90% subconscious means that we then have 100% of us on board to make our positive changes real and meaningful and permanent. And then next, because I take people through my proven 3-step formula in an easy to follow, step-by-step process that's still practical and pleasant and relevant with, you know, the teaching and exercises. I give them audios to work directly on the subconscious, which can be used over and over. So it really makes the profound, deep, life-transforming shift simple and doable. And then thirdly, the part I love most is actually that part I know that's very close to your heart too, is bringing people back to who they really are, rather than what life has caused them to become, which is the biggest difference of all, I think, in my approach to helping people with anxiety and depression, you know, helping to live well from that deep inner space so that they can have that authentic, fulfilling and satisfying life.
Oh, that sounds great. That sounds fabulous. I love that you say that it's permanent and you're coming from a place of authenticity. You're not just telling people platitudes of, oh, be positive. You actually through a process that is very authentic to overcome and transcend that anxiety and depression permanently. Tell us more about your 3-step proven process. Give us some more of that. Talk to us.
Sure, I'd love to. I tell you, I love talking about this because I know how powerful it is, and it's a lovely opportunity to share all this. So thank you so much. You know, in our brain, we have our original caveman part, which is known as our primitive mind. And this part's so negative. It's really that glass half empty stuff, always looking for the worst case scenarios. And then lest we forget the threats and dangers in our life, like the creaking bank balance or the difficult task at work that has to be done, or the row we just had, or a challenging teenager and so on. It keeps reminding, yeah, absolutely. It keeps reminding us those things to then keep us alert to our threats, which is why it's so hard to dismiss these things from our mind. And the worst thing is this primitive part has no intellect, so it can't rationalize anything or find ways forward. It just keeps encouraging us to repeat all the old beliefs and patterns and behaviors on the basis that if we did something before and we survived, if we do it again, we'll continue to survive, even if it's to our detriment. You know, like we all know smoking's bad for us, right? We all know smoking's bad. Yet this primitive part doesn't have the intellect to realize that. So if we smoked 20 cigarettes yesterday and survive, it actually encourages us to smoke another 20 cigarettes again today, even though that's killing us.
Ooh!
Absolutely, because it hasn't got the intellect to realize that. So this process is the same with all the data that we've ever taken on board, you know, that it's just unevaluated right from that tiny age that then forms this blueprint in our mind from the age of about 4 or 5 years old, from which we then live. And then when that becomes a habit and we're spending the majority of our time in this primitive part of our brain, no wonder we get to be miserable and anxious and depressed. So I actually call this part of the brain our rat's den, because it's such a dark, miserable, uncomfortable place to be. So I like the visual of it, you know. And the more negativity we have going on in our minds, the more we're feeding our rats. So the first step of my formula is to clear out that negative data, the old beliefs, the patterns, the behaviors, the unhelpful ways of living from that deepest subconscious. going to sprat those rats and then reprogram our mind back to truthful, helpful, positive templates from which to live, so that then our changes are meaningful and permanent because we've changed them on that deepest level. And then the next part is that we have our other part of our subconscious in our brain, known as our intellectual mind, which has evolved since we were cavemen 1.7 odd million years ago. Wow. And this part, again, I know, as you know, is phenomenal. So, you know, our brain, oh, isn't it incredible, Janine? Our brain is the most complex thing in the known universe. Isn't that awesome?
It is. We're awesome.
Yeah, sitting there right now between our own two ears. So, and this evolved part of our brain is positive and rational and has a vast resource of answers and solutions. And that's then when we get to live well and perform well and achieve. And because it is an intellect, it can think for itself. So that's why we get to have fresh ideas and can move forward. Oh. And we also, in that part of the brain, we get to produce our feel-good chemicals. Oh. And we handle our challenges easily and confidently. So I call this part of our brain our palace mind, because it's such a wonderful, splendid, fabulous place to live. So step 2 of my formula is to just learn how to live from this palace part of our brain instead of our rat stem part. And there are 2 extra good things to note here, because in our palace mind there are only 5 simple components to understand and assimilate and live to be in that part of the brain. Janine, I'm sure you share this with me. It's my dearest wish that this be taught in schools, because, you know, just imagine if we learned how to use our brain for living well rather than just for history dates and maths and grammar and what have you, we'd be equipped to live well for the rest of our life, right? Yeah. To save ourselves so much pain and grief. Wouldn't that be wonderful?
Yes, absolutely. It would be wonderful.
Yay! Yay!
And teaching it in schools so that it alleviates some of that programming you were talking about from the reptilian brain, that brain that runs on programming. If we alleviate some of the programming right from the beginning, people actually can then build their whole lives, starting from the time they're children, to live out of what you call that, what was that, the higher brain?
Palace mind. The palace mind.
Palace mind. Oh, I love that analogy. Yeah. Oh, I want to live in the palace. Yeah.
Well, we don't want to be in the rat stem, we want to live in the palace, you know? And it's just next door in our own head. But absolutely, if we learn these things, if we learn how to handle fear or resentment or, you know, all these things when we were young, we then set that up as a life pattern, rather than going through into adulthood from what we learned as children and then living out and finding out then the hard way, you know, when things don't work out the way we want, and going through this whole learning curve once we're in adulthood, when we so could learn it when we were young. So it's my dearest wish for that to happen. But of course, the other thing is that we all have they absolutely have the power to make this change from our rat stems to the palace, because the bottom line is, who thinks in your mind? You know, you do. You're the only one who thinks in your mind. I'm the only one who thinks in my head. Everyone is the only person who can ever think in their own mind. So that's why we can always have the power to do something with what's going on in it. And our thoughts are really only based on that data that we've had implanted there from way back. So now we can get to choose to like reevaluate this data and then reprogram what isn't true and doesn't serve us, and get to live in that phenomenal palace part of our mind. As I said, it's just next door in our own head. We just need to know how. So that's the step 2 of my formula, living those 5 components of living in our palace mind. But yet, again, you know, as brilliant as this is, it's still not the whole answer. Because we know, right, that thinking happy thoughts make us feel good and bad thoughts makes us feel bad. Yet we can't rely on having positive thoughts all the time so that we can, you know, feel good. That's hard work. It's unrealistic, isn't it? So we need something else so that we can feel good from within, innately, effortlessly. And, you know, so many of us are wanting to find happiness from external sources, you know, like achieving the big house or the big bank balance, or having a relationship, attaining a high work status. But none of these things really give us that sense of inner peace and fulfillment if we can't be happy without them. As soon as we get what we think we want, we're just happy for a short while, and then we want the next thing and next thing.
Yeah, chasing.
And as I know, we've all been there. Even being in a wonderful relationship doesn't really make us happy for very long, because we keep needing more and more from that partner, and it's a tremendous burden for them then to be responsible for our happiness. So we need to feel good and be accountable for our own happiness first and foremost, feel good about ourselves from that deep within space. And that's the step 3 of my formula, to come home to our real self, authentic, lasting peace, contentment, and happiness, because then it doesn't matter what happens or doesn't happen out there. We can be happy anyway.
Oh, that's beautiful. So your third step then about learning how to live from the happiness within.
Coming back to your real self, because really what happens is that we all end up living from the space that life has caused us to become, rather than living from that space of who we really are. We're born babies, right? We're born babies, and then from that space, we get to learn all this stuff that pulls us off. And so then we live life from what life causes us to become, rather from who we really are. And so that's really what that bit's about. It's about the coming home to who we really are, because then we live well from that innate space.
So that third step is all about that, remembering who we really are and living from that space, so we have happiness within, not dependent upon circumstances.
Absolutely.
Awesome.
Absolutely.
Okay, so is there a fundamental key to that third step? That happiness within?
Yeah, it's just really it's about coming back to that space, as I say, not from that space of what life has caused us to become, coming back to us, because, as I said, we were born babies, right? Tell me any baby that is not a miraculous expression of life, And even if babies are born with limbs missing or whatever, they're still kind of innately whole and perfect. And is there a baby born anywhere that isn't lovable or isn't good enough exactly as they are? Yeah? Right? Every baby is just awesome. And what baby isn't worthy and deserving of good experiences? Yeah, right. Every baby is whole and perfect exactly as they are, lovable as they are, good enough as they are, worthy and deserving of positive experiences exactly as they are, right? You and I were babies too. Anyone listening in was a baby. So the thing is that we get born in that state of perfection, and yet we so soon learn a whole load of things to the contrary, and we forget that space of perfection, and we become more and more detached from that true self. We grow up with those outside influences from people around us, and our circumstances, our environment, and all this other contrary data. And of course, then that primitive part of our brain, which is all we have when we're tiny, because we need to learn about what we need to do for survival. So that primitive part of the brain with no intellect just takes this data on board unevaluated. So that's when then we just get to believe that we have to give in order to be loved, that we aren't good enough as we are, or we have to behave in certain ways to have approval, or be a certain way to be accepted, or we get good grades at school to be good enough. Yes, it sounds like or we adopt these strategies so that we can fit in or cope or get to have our needs met. And we're learning actually from others who've also been through this, and as much as they might be doing the very best that they can for us, we're essentially all victims of victims just living out this contrary data, which isn't true because we're born in perfection and doesn't support us or help us live well or feel good. So the key is to realign with that truth of who we really are, that miraculous expression of life that we are, with infinite and unlimited soul, and that we're whole and perfect and worthy and deserving and good enough and lovable exactly as we are, regardless of faults and flaws and mistakes and anything else that we've lived out. And when we come back to this space of recognizing our truth, and we close the gap from what life has caused us to become back home to the real us, then, as I know you already know, Janine, we get to feel good every day just because we're alive.
And that's the way life was intended to be.
Absolutely. And then from this empowered, centered space, we're automatically connected with that palace part of our brain. So we get to live there authentically with all its benefits and so on effortlessly. And it means that we can also then handle our life challenges with confidence and aplomb too. So I love this analogy. What do you think of this analogy, Ron? I like to say that we become like the willow tree, which can bend and sway and withstand storms. And then afterwards, you know, it can be flat on the floor in the storm, but then it gets to kind of come back up and it, you know, it can grow and repair any damage that may have been done. Rather than like being like that oak tree, that big solid oak tree, which then in the storms just gets uprooted and becomes helpless.
Rigid. Yeah.
Yeah, it's that rigid, it's that oak tree. We want to be able to sway and stay centered, stay roots into the ground and centered. But then with those life challenges, we can actually withstand them because it's just a temporary thing that passes and then we can repair.
Oh, I love that analogy.
Yay.
Oh, that's a beautiful analogy.
I love trees. I love trees.
Versus the oak tree. Oh, I love that. That's beautiful because yes, life gets effortless and easy when we're not in resistance and we can sway. So I think that's beautiful. And that your processes teach that is really the major reason why I wanted all of our listeners to have the opportunity to work with you, Demi. And I would like very much at this time if you would express to everyone listening if they want to work with you, and I heartily encourage and recommend that, everyone. You will love what you experience in Demi's courses and through her tutelage. Demi, tell everybody how they can work with you.
Well, I am more than happy to work one-to-one. I'm in England, so while some people do journey over from all over to do my 2-day fast-track course, I have a 90-day success program, which we can do via Skype or phone. That costs £795. I think that's currently about $1,200. Or what I'm really excited about is my new video course, because this is something people then can do with no time zone complications, from the ease and the comfort of their own home, at a time that totally suits them in their week, and at a price that's more easily affordable. So in my video course, I take participants through my 3-step formula in 7 modules that are delivered by email to their inbox over 8 weeks. And the modules are 60 to 90 minutes long, just of me on video, a bit like this now, but talking like I'm sitting next to that person, you know, teaching things, taking them through the various exercises and material step by step. Beautiful. And there are support PDFs and audios for each module as well. And I offer unlimited email access to me and my team to answer any questions, absolutely. Because I really want everyone to feel supported. So, you know, you've got this module, you've got questions, I want them to know they've just got to email, and then we'll be right back to them with the answer or the help or the support or whatever it is that they need. Confidentially, of course. Yeah. So in the modules, we cover the mind stuff that I've spoken about briefly here, and we get to identify quickly and easily the blocks and barriers in that rat stem part of the mind. So then we know what to reprogram later, and clear out all the negative attachments to the past, dissolve those deep negatives such as, you know, the patterns of criticism, the not being good enough, the worthiness and deservingness, the guilt, the resentment, the fear, all the stuff that we have that blocks us so much. But I have the most wonderful, simple, delightful and pleasant ways to do this, directly accessing the subconscious mind for maximum effect and make those deep shifts really permanent. And then I go on to moving on to those 5 components of the palace mind, so we live well and perform well and achieve. Again, I give those step-by-step, simple, doable things to enable easy assimilation and implementation, so that then, you know, people who do my courses can live on this whole new trajectory for a whole new future. And then, of course, there's that all-important step, the coming home to oneself, you know, truly valuing ourselves to be the very best version that we can be, so that we can feel good just because we're alive and have our best life. Because, you know, I love my motto: life is too short not to be happy. Right? Life is too short not to be happy. Right. And we can have happiness absolutely every single day from feeling it within. And it's just so exciting. I love watching people like you do with your students and clients, watching them on that journey and getting there, and it's just so wonderful, isn't it? So for any listeners who are interested in signing up for this, I also want to know I do give a full money back guarantee as well. So that after module 1, if anyone's not happy, it's not right for them for any reason, all they've got to do is just fill in their name and email and submit it for a full refund, as long as that's within 7 days of receiving module 1. So it is risk-free as well. And for all of that, the 7 modules of me sitting next to you for 60 to 90 minutes a week, taking you on this wonderful, wonderful journey. It's delivered by email over 8 weeks. That unlimited email access for individual help and support. Plus, I give a complimentary copy of my ebook, Beat Your Depression for Good. And also, I give 18 monthly PDFs following the video course. So there's 18 months of ongoing connection support and that money back guarantee. And I also want today to make a very, very special offer. The cost usually for all of this is £375 English pounds, which is currently about $570. So I want to invite anyone who's interested to say all that they need to do is just email me on demischneider@me.com. That's DEMISCHNEIDER@me.com with video course Janine as the subject. Video course Janine is the subject. And then I will send out all the course information with a discounted buy now button of just $495. So that saves $75 on that price.
Thank
and
you.
Of course, there's that refund option as well if someone's not happy. So this really is a no-risk, win-win opportunity to start dissolving those life-diminishing issues, and live well, feel good, and have a more authentically enjoyable life with lasting peace and happiness.
Demi,
So,
I'm absolutely delighted that our listeners will have the opportunity to work with you. I want to express to everyone that part of the reason I wanted to have this interview with Demi so that you could meet her and experience a fullness of joy in hearing the information that Spirit has flowed to all of us through her is because Demi, I have experienced as having the gift of teaching. Now, those of you who have worked with me before know that I perceive that to be an absolutely critical gift for someone who is disseminating awakening information. It's one thing to know it yourself and to have experienced it yourself, which Demi has. She herself has overcome the situation. It's one thing to have overcome it yourself. It is another thing to be able to disseminate the information in a way that the hearer can receive it.
yes.
Demi has the gift of teaching, which I believe is a spiritual giftedness. So I love her processes. I love her work. I know you will experience it to be very fulfilling. And as she said, she has a full refund option. So you have nothing to lose. Please contact Demi through her website, depressionbustingcourses.com, and
email me. And email me with that video course Janine in the subject line. That's the easiest way to get me directly. The video course isn't on my website. This is exclusive. So the video course isn't on my website. This is exclusive. So DEM for mother, DEMIS for sugar, CHNEIDER, Demi Schneider @me.com with video course Janine as the subject, and then I will absolutely get that information off with that discounted buy now button.
Excellent. Thank you all for joining us. Contact Demi now. Goodbye, everybody. I love you, my sister.
Thank you. Thank you for being here. Thank you.
Everybody's best.
Thank you, Janine. Love you. Love you, Janine.
Everybody.
Thank you. Bye.